Okay, great. Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Ajax Public Library's Dementia Friendly Communities presented by the Alzheimer Society of Durham Region. My name is Julia Campbell, and I'm the Adult Services Librarian at the Ajax Library. I wanted to start by covering a couple of housekeeping items before we get started. Today's presentation is being recorded, so I would ask that you please keep your webcam and microphones off so that you are not displayed or heard in the recording. The camera and the microphone icons can be found at the bottom left of your screen. We will have a Q&A portion after the presentation, at which point I will stop the recording to protect everyone's privacy and so that everyone feels comfortable sharing and asking questions. And at that point, you can please feel free to unmute yourself and turn your camera back on if you wish to do so. We have live transcription of this program, so if you'd like to turn on the transcript, you can do so by clicking Live Transcript at the bottom of the Zoom and Show Subtitles. And then in the top right, you can choose the view you prefer. Speaker view will allow you to see the speaker beside the presentation, and gallery view will allow you to see all the participants. So I leave it to you to decide which view you prefer. And the chat button is there along the bottom. If you have any questions or comments you would like to share, you have the option of chatting with everyone, or you can send a private message to me, Julia, or to our presenter, Sarah. Please feel free to ask questions throughout the presentation, and we will do our best to get to them either during the presentation or at the end. If you experience any technical difficulties, I recommend that you exit the Zoom and re-enter. If you continue to have difficulties, please place a comment in the chat and I will do my best to assist you. So now it is my pleasure to introduce our presenter, Sarah Wells from the Alzheimer Society of Durham Region. Sarah recently joined the Alzheimer Society as a public education coordinator, and she's involved with facilitating workshops for various demographics, such as individuals living with dementia, caregivers, and healthcare practitioners. We are very lucky to have her with us today, so without further ado, I will turn it over to Sarah to begin her presentation.
All right, thank you, Julia. As she mentioned, my name is Sarah. I am a community education coordinator with the Alzheimer Society. And as she said, I just recently joined just about 2 months ago. So I'm still kind of new in my position. So today we are going to be, or I'm going to be teaching you about Dementia Friendly Community. Some individuals, you may have heard of it. Some people may have never heard of one, but that's fine. We're going to cover what it is exactly, what creates a Dementia Friendly Community, as well as I'm going to be giving a little bit of background on the Alzheimer Society of ourselves can offer to anybody who's interested. So I'm just going to pop up my screen really quickly. And then Julia, can you just let me know if
I can see it. It's just showing the next slide there as well.
All right. Better?
Yes, that's better. Perfect.
Perfect. Thank you so much. All right. So as we said, today so my information or my email address down at the bottom, as well as at alzheimerdurham.com. If you're not able to answer a question today, or you want to get into any other, if you want to reach me, you can do so at the email down below. So talking a little bit about dementia, we like to provide a little bit of stats about dementia. So we see on the slide right now is that over 564,000 Canadians are currently living with dementia. And even though the study was done in 2016, it does show that it's not kind of a rare disease, it's actually more common than we think. And that what we're showing is that as we progress and go through the years, by 2031, we're going to see that number almost doubles. By 2031, we're expected to have almost 1 million, over 937,000 Canadians diagnosed. And it kind of coming back to that first statistic, we can see that 16,000 Canadians under the age of 65 will actually be diagnosed with dementia or Alzheimer's disease or another form of it. And so for some individuals in this age group, we call that early onset dementia, and we're going to be talking a little bit more about that. But we can also see that that number may also increase as well as the years go on. And looking more specifically to Durham Region itself, we can see that it's estimated about just over 11,000 individuals right now are currently living with dementia or have a diagnosis of it. So one thing we kind of like to put into perspective is that we want you to think about all the types of individuals you do interact with on a daily basis. So you can think about your friends, your family, your neighbors, but also the individuals you may see or have a conversation with. So if you go to the grocery store, if you go out, obviously with respect to COVID, if you go to a restaurant, the gym, or anything like that, all these individuals can be impacted. So whether they'll be the ones to be diagnosed with, they'll have a family member or a friend or anything like that. And that's what we kind of want to share is that 3 out of 4 Canadians may know someone or eventually know somebody who is living with dementia. We find that 4 out of 4 of those Canadians will be impacted. So as I said, we're just going to give a little bit of a background what dementia is here. You can see on our screen, it's that nice big umbrella term, that nice all-encompassing term to kind of describe the set of symptoms that are associated with a cognitive impairment. So an individual who's living with dementia, we may see those symptoms such as changes in memory, personality, mood. They may struggle to communicate. And what we want to talk about is that when we think about dementia, a lot of individuals may think that it's very normal as a person does age and do they get older, but unfortunately that's not true. Uh, Alzheimer's disease is a type of dementia, but dementia is actually not considered to be a part of normal aging. It's actually considered to be a mild cognitive impairment. What we see with individuals who are living with dementia, it's just a shift in the way they experience and interact with the world around them. So we're talking about the physical environment, the people they interact with, the noises, the sounds they may hear, kind of the general atmosphere. So as we see under our umbrella disease, we see different types of dementia an individual can be diagnosed with. So first and foremost, we have Alzheimer's disease, which is kind of our most common. It's the one that most individuals may think about when we mention the word dementia. And that makes up about roughly 50 to 75% of all dementia cases. We have our next one, which is vascular dementia. And vascular dementia can also come about if an individual has suffered trauma to their head, or they've had a mental health, or not mental health, I apologize, something like a stroke or anything like that. So that can definitely be a risk factor for being diagnosed with vascular dementia. We have our next one, which is Lewy bodies disease. And that can also come about as well due to a possible traumatic brain injury. Lewy bodies can also come about if an individual is also living with Parkinson's disease. And then we have our last one, which is frontotemporal, which again may come about if an individual has suffered a traumatic brain injury or they do have maybe an underlying health condition as well. I do also like to mention 2 other types of dementia that an individual can be living with. So the one I already mentioned is for individuals who may be diagnosed under the age 65, and that is our early onset dementia. And then our other one is our mixed dementia, which is where individuals can be living with a combination of any ones we see on the screen here. So for an example, an individual can be diagnosed with Lewy bodies and also Alzheimer's as well. And unfortunately, with Alzheimer's disease, it is unfortunately a progressive and degenerative disease, and it is not irreversible. However, we are seeing some improvements in terms of research, in terms of medications or even therapies that can maybe help manage the progressive or even slow it down. But unfortunately, as we said, it's not irreversible. So now moving on a little bit more to knowing maybe the 10 warning signs of Alzheimer's disease. So we start with our first one here, which is that memory loss that affects our day-to-day abilities. So we see the example there is forgetting things often or struggling to retain new information. And to give a little bit more background information, we want to make sure that we're pointing out red flags, such as an individual not being able to remember an event or a conversation that happened, 5 minutes ago, an hour ago, earlier that day. If we notice an individual may be struggling to recall events that happened 2 weeks ago, last year, what we may know is that maybe is not a mild cognitive impairment, that unfortunately that it's just they're not able to recall that instance. But as we said, if they're not able to recall something that's happened, quite recently, such as like an hour ago, that for us can be a warning sign that someone may be living with Alzheimer's disease or another cognitive impairment. We see our next one, which is difficulty performing familiar tasks. So, a certain routine or activity an individual has done for the past few decades, all of a sudden, if they're not able to perform that routine as they normally did, or there's a change in it that may be seen as risky or harmful to the individual, that can be a warning sign as well. We have our next one, which is problems with language. We actually have a term for that. It's called aphasia. And problems with language, that can be anything from not being able to choose the right word. So we see in the example, the individual, they're picking up a cat, but maybe they use the word dog to describe them. We can even use things such as not being able to properly communicate a sentence. Or when we're talking about problems with language, is that during a conversation, they're not able to interpret properly the information that is being shared. So in response to that, you may get an answer that is not relevant to the topic you're discussing. We have our next one, which is disorientation in time and space. And we actually do have another word for this as well. It's just altered perception. So this is, again, the individuals, they may not be able to perceive the environment around them properly. They have trouble, knowing up, down, left, right. In certain environments, they may not be able to distinguish, a safe environment versus unsafe environment. And unfortunately with this, we see individuals are at risk for wandering or getting lost. We have our next one, which is impaired judgment. And again, maybe not being able to recognize a situation is maybe a high risk for them, or they're not able to recognize that something's wrong. So one example that we can see here that is very common is that individuals may not be properly dressed to go outside. So in the picture we see here, it looks like a cold, snowy day. The individual, they're not wearing a winter coat, boots, or mitts. Or as we may say today, today outside, it's raining, it's not that great. And if we see someone outside, a tank top, shorts, flip-flops, no umbrella, we may think, hey, something might be wrong with their judgment. We move on to our next one, which is problems with abstract thinking. So again, this is things like balancing a checkbook, maybe not understanding simple math equations or able to do them. That can definitely be a warning flag as well. Misplacing things in unusual places. So we see there that someone has put a dress in the refrigerator. Some other things as well is that they may be putting appliances back in cupboards where they shouldn't be, or you're putting things from the bathroom into the kitchen, things like that. So again, not being able to properly put things in their correct place or thinking that they go in one area where they shouldn't be. That's another one of our warning signs. And then we have changes in behavior as well. When an individual is living with dementia, as we said, their personality and their mood can be affected as well. So that's why you might see them. They may say things or participate in activities that is kind of outside what is considered normal for them. So all of a sudden, an individual who may have been described as pleasant their whole life, all of a sudden, they may seem to be very unpleasant, or someone may label them as being aggressive. We can also see changes in their, as we said, changes in their personality as well. Someone who may have been very extroverted all their life, very social. All of a sudden we see a change in that and they prefer to be a little bit more withdrawn. They don't really enjoy socializing with other individuals, or they become a little bit more suspicious of their actions. And then finally, we have our last one, which is that loss of initiative. So kind of that losing interest in, going out and socializing with friends or family or doing those certain activities. And what we see was that loss of initiative is that it can be a little bit, we find that it's not the same as depression. This loss of initiative can lead to it, but it's not exactly the same. So that's just a little bit of our different signs and symptoms of Alzheimer's disease. A couple things I do want to point out. So the first 5 I went through, the memory loss, the difficulty performing familiar lifelong tasks. As I said, 1 to 5, unfortunately, those are risk factors that can increase an individual to wander or get lost. And as we go further into the presentation, we can discuss ways to kind of help support the individual if they are higher risk as well. But one thing I also want to mention here is that even though we discuss these 10 warning signs, it does not necessarily mean the individual is going to start off showing warning sign number 1, and as they progress through the disease, that they're going to show all 10 of them. Some individuals may only show, 1, 2, or 3. Some individuals may show warning sign number 10 as their first one, and then may show warning sign number 1 as the second. So these are just examples. But each individual is unique in how they're going to progress and the different things they may experience as well. So moving forward, We just have a quick video I'm going to show everybody. So what this video shows is that kind of the difference, how important it may be to an individual and just a small change in how we have a conversation or how we set up our environments or how we interact with an individual. You know, it may take 30 seconds out of our day, but it can mean the world to that individual. So I'm going to pull up my screen here. I'm going to, there we go. So this is just out of the UK, but I would still like to say it is quite relevant. Julia, is everything okay on my end?
Yep, I can see the video.
Perfect, thank you. So here we go.
Sunrises tomorrow morning from 7 o'clock here on 107.9 FM.
Right. It's not raining. Good. What? I've forgotten. Should I?
Just go
I
sit
put-
down. Just
Oh.
go sit down.
Yeah. Right. Oh, that way. I don't what? Oh, I don't know. Could you please? It's my list. Should I go? I don't know quite what. Oh dear. Chicken cheese.
What?
Chicken cheese?
Sorry.
Oh. Oh. I don't know. People with dementia have experiences like this every day. A little bit of understanding, tolerance, and patience can make all the difference.
I'll tell you what. If you go into the seats just there,
Right.
when we get there, I'll call you. Okay?
Okay, madam.
I can't get on.
Let me help you. This way.
Thank you.
Can I have a look at that list?
Yes.
Chicken and cheese.
Oh,
Let's go this way.
thank you. Find out how to become dementia friendly. Contact Alzheimer's Society today.
All right, so again, that's just a quick little video that we do kind of like to show from the Alzheimer Society, that how the individual living with dementia, we could see those warning signs. You know, she put the tea in the fridge and she put the milk in the cupboard. She wasn't able to properly read her grocery list. She wasn't able to remember her PIN. And for an individual living with dementia, we can see that it can be very overwhelming. And they may not want to maybe ask for help, again, maybe due to fear or shame that they don't want someone knowing that they are living with dementia. But we can see that just maybe taking, 3 seconds, 2 minutes out of your day just to go and approach and say, do you need some help? Do you need me to read this for you? Do you want help putting in your PIN? It can just make that whole change for that whole person's day. So I'm going to jump back into my presentation. All right, I think we should be good. There we go. So now we're just going to move on to what a dementia-friendly community is. So as we saw in the video, it's kind of the place, so it can be, you know, an entire community, it could be just a couple of individuals, but it's just kind of creating an environment where people who are living with dementia, they're understood, they're respected, they're treated with dignity, and they're supported at each stage of the disease, but also as they progress as well. So again, it's a place where they can feel confident in their skills and they can still contribute to community life. What we may see for some individuals who are living with dementia is that, again, they may choose to withdraw from participating in those social activities, or they want to withdraw from going out and doing those daily activities for fear that they make a mistake or they're not going to know what they're doing, or they want to avoid embarrassing themselves. So that's why it's really important that we have dementia-friendly communities, that we're kind of creating these environments where these people can go and feel supported. Again, they're not going to have that fear. They're not going to be judged if they do make a mistake. If anything, we can go and say, let's figure out why and figure out how we can avoid this for next time. So kind of looking at our different parts, we can see our first one, which is understand. And that's understanding, again, what is dementia? What are the signs and symptoms an individual can experience as well? And what are the challenges that these individuals are facing in their everyday lives? As much as we can go and say, well, I think this might be best for them, I think this might be best. When we talk about creating a dementia-friendly community, the experts and where we should find this information is from the people who are living with dementia themselves, because they know what their needs are. They know what requirements and supports are going to be put in place in order for them to excel in what they do. We have our next one, which is includes, which is, again, including individuals in all aspects of community life, and most importantly, including them in their decision making. Some individuals, again, they may want to withdraw, and we still want to give them the opportunity to go and voice their opinion. And if we give them the opportunity and they say, you know what, I don't want to have anything to do with this, we're still providing them to be able to make that decision for themselves. And this kind of brings us into our next one, which is encourages. And again, we're really encouraging and promoting the independence for individuals living with dementia, that we're saying, you know, as much as you've had this diagnosis, it does not mean it's the end of life. It means that you can no longer participate. In fact, we want you to go out and encourage and show that even if you are living with dementia, you are living with a cognitive impairment, it shouldn't stop you from going and doing the things you love to do and participating in the things that you want to. But then we also can show that even if you do get to a point in the disease as it progresses, that you do require a little bit of support, that's where you pop in our assists. So again, making sure that we're supporting the individual in appropriate and helpful ways. You know, do we have to change the environment? Do we have to bring in an assistive device? Do we have to change the way we communicate with individuals as well? And finally, we get to our last point, which is values. And again, we're valuing, we're treating these individuals with dignity, and we're welcoming these individuals no matter where they go, into our businesses, into our establishments, everything. So again, we really want to make sure that we are encouraging these individuals that, again, even if they have this diagnosis, we still want to show them that you can still participate in your environment, and that if you do find that if you need to ask for some help or you do feel lost, we're here to help you out. And this can be anybody from friends, family, neighbors, total strangers, anything like that. I would like to note here as we go on, some individuals may think, well, you know, an age-friendly community, that might be the same. So an age-friendly community does also promote things such as inclusion as accessibility. But unfortunately, it does not tackle the specific issues that might be faced for individuals who are living with dementia. As we said, dementia is not considered to be part of normal aging. So an age-friendly community, again, may not have those resources in place to support those individuals. So we just have a couple of quotes here from our staff from the Alzheimer Society of Durham Region. And we just kind of asked them, when they talk about a dementia-friendly community, what kind of is the first thought that pops into our head? So we see kind of those keywords that I've been talking about so far. So we have, you know, they feel supported, it's accessible, it's inclusive, there are safe spaces for those individuals. Really want to practice patience with the individuals, because as we said, as much as to say we're accommodating to those individuals, these individuals themselves are learning now how to navigate their life. Now they are living with dementia and maybe how to come across as obstacles they may face. And I think finally, my favorite one here is that they're able to live their lives in the community without fear of stigma. And as I said, due to a lot of misinformation or just people just not generally knowing what dementia is, some individuals may withdraw or regress due to this fear and the stigma. So just a little bit now, background of Dementia Friendly Community Initiatives. So we're going to talk a little bit how it kind of came about. So first up, we're talking about our Blue Umbrella program, and this occurred in the towns of Whitby and Ajax from 2017 to 2018. And we can see that during this time, about 51 organizations, they received training in terms of, again, just what is dementia, how you can support these individuals coming into your businesses. And they got to receive a little sticker that goes on their business to say that they are dementia friendly. But why it came about was that a survey was actually done for individuals who are living with dementia as well as their caregivers. And they asked them, you know, if you're going into the community, what do you need in place to order to feel supported? So a lot of those answers were being able to be treated with respect and dignity. They want to feel included. Do they have an awareness of just what dementia is in general? And especially when they were talking about the specific environments, they talked about things such as, you know, what's the parking situation? What's the atmosphere like when I'm walking in there? What's the signage when I walk in? You know, is everything clear? If I'm going in to eat, what's the menu like? Is it legible, or am I going to have issues kind of trying to figure out what I want to eat? And most importantly, is it a safe environment for me? So again, what they did is that the Blue Umbrella kind of took this information, they decided to create a program where they said, okay, in order to tackle these issues, we're going to go into these businesses and we're going to figure out, we're not only going to deliver them this kind of information, this education, we're going to take a look at what they're doing currently and saying, you know, this practice that you're doing is great, it's supportive, it kind of falls in line of what we want to achieve, but also what are some areas of improvement? So again, unfortunately, that program did end in 2018, but we decided to continue it now with our dementia friendly community initiatives through the Alzheimer Society. And again, we're still trying to achieve those goals, such as making sure that individuals are aware of what dementia is, making sure these organizations are aware of what dementia is, and making sure that if they do request it, we're going in, we're providing these trainings for these different organizations or for these different individuals, and kind of providing them that feedback on, you know, hey, this is what you're doing great, this is where you need to make improvements. And one of the ways we do that after training, so again, as I said, they learn about dementia, they explore these strategies, we let them know that we also at the Alzheimer Society, we're here to help. But we also actually do is that we have a volunteer who will then, after the training, go into these places of business, go into these restaurants. And what they'll do is that they will go and they will look at everything, as we said, what's the signage like, what's the environment like, the atmosphere, and then they'll kind of provide that feedback. And they'll say, as an individual going into this environment, this is how I felt. This was positive. This is kind of neutral. This is kind of negative. And they'll take that feedback and again, kind of implement new strategies to make sure that we are making individuals feel supported. And again, this is kind of great because at the end of the day, as we said, we're going to see an increase in the number of individuals who are going to be diagnosed with dementia. So we kind of want to create that, be a part of that foundation, create that dementia-friendly community now, not just within Durham Region, but across the province and across the country. So this is where we kind of get into the dementia-friendly Canada. So kind of still looking at the community, but kind of looking at it as a national goal. And so we can see there that we want to kind of develop those consistent, diverse, and widespread dementia-friendly initiatives and kind of create those tools that can be used across the country. But obviously, again, if you go region to region, province to province, anywhere in the country, depending on the communities there, their needs or requirements may be a little bit differently, but it still is important that we have that strong foundation of treating individuals with respect and dignity, make sure that they feel supported, listening to what their needs and requirements are. When we can see eventually, or what we're kind of doing right now, is we're seeing a whole bunch of online courses. So people that, even if they can't attend them in person, they can still attend them virtually, such as this. And then based on the feedback we're getting from, the individuals living with dementia or their caregivers, getting that feedback and trying to figure out, okay, what's working best for us in terms of delivering this information. And because we also are based on because Canada, we do have a lot of cultures as well. We are hopefully offering things in English as well as French, but maybe also other languages as well in the future. So that's just a little bit of background on Dementia Friendly Canada. So now we're going to look more into, when we're talking about specific environments, some considerations we can have. So now we're going to look at physical space considerations. And with our first point there, we talk about wayfinding, which is, as it says, that the individual is kind of finding their way in their environment or navigating it. So today we're presenting to Ajax Public Library. So we're going to be using kind of the library as our example. So we talk about the things when you walk into a library. Take a moment to think of all the different things when you walk into the library. So, what's the entrance and exit like when you first walk in? Is there a help desk? Is there maybe a bulletin board to kind of show what different events are going on? Is there, maybe a quiet room where you can go read? What's it like when you go want to check out a book? There's a lot of things that really we may not recognize when we walk into an environment that we have to kind of take into account. And some things we may not recognize until, unfortunately, a crisis happens, but we don't want to wait until that happens. So a couple of examples we can give in terms of signage can be, making sure signs are clear and simple, and they're a large print, and they're placed at eye level. So individuals are not looking up, but they're not also having to crouch down to kind of read them as well. And making sure that if you are using any graphics, they do complement the information on the page as well. I discussed entrances and exits to buildings. So making sure that they are accessible, that if you do have stairs there, you do also have an accessibility ramp as well. So individuals of all physical abilities are able to enter and exit the building. But also making sure, again, that they're clearly visible and obvious to individuals. They're well lit. So, even if they're going later at night, or if they're going on a day like today where maybe it's a little bit gray and rainy, they can still figure out, this is the entrance, this is where I need to go. And then once they're inside the building, again, making sure there's adequate lighting. It's not too dim that they can't see quite well, but it's also not too bright that the light is hurting their eyes. Making sure that hallways, they're wide enough, they're not obstructed, that the individual can put themselves in a risky situation trying to navigate around. Libraries, we do encourage that businesses do have a quiet space available. Obviously, with libraries, quiet spaces can be abundant. We do find with other environments, if they are particularly loud or there is a lot of stimulation going on, the individual can feel overwhelmed. And it can be difficult for them to try to communicate what they may be looking for. But also when we find they become overwhelmed and overstimulated, their signs and symptoms can actually worsen in that moment. And as we said, it can be kind of difficult to try to determine what service they're here for. So sometimes what you may do to an individual is, if you can take them to a quiet space where they can calm down and kind of come down to a neutral point, it may be more beneficial for them to kind of communicate what their needs are. And it's also beneficial for you to try to understand and meet those needs as well. And then kind of moving a little bit more along, we talked about graphics. So when we're talking about pictures, again, as we said, pictures alongside text are really useful, because for some individuals who may have trouble recognizing written words, pictures or graphics are very helpful to kind of supplement that information. But we just want to make sure that they are being used, that they do have a purpose and they match the content. And now moving on, when we actually talk about interacting with the individual themselves, so communicating. So again, with individuals who are living with dementia, as we said, they may have a lot of issues with communicating. So trying to get the right word out, or trying to piece together a sentence, or even when you're having a conversation, they may not be able to interpret properly the information you've provided for them. So we just do have a couple of suggestions for what you can do. So First of all, the one thing is looking kind of at our nonverbal. So individuals who are living with dementia, they can actually pick up very quickly on those nonverbal messages, such as your facial expressions, your tone of voice, your gestures, your eye contact, and they can actually mimic and mirror those things back to you. So if you find that maybe you're in a moment where, your tone of voice may be off or the gestures you're using aren't beneficial and you see that in the individual, you may have to take a moment to step back and say, how can I change my nonverbal cues to what I'm doing? And then kind of talking about communicating with individuals. So first and foremost, be supportive. Take the time to actually talk to the individual. We don't want to rush them. Individuals living with dementia, it actually takes them 7 times longer to process information and conversation. So that's why when you ask them a question, it may take a couple of moments for them to register the question that's been asked, and then actually make or provide an answer for you as well. And I've kind of talking along with that as well. When we're asking individual questions, we want to ask them more close-ended, so yes or no questions. Again, if we ask them open-ended questions, such as, what type of book are you here for? There are many types of books. There are different kinds of topics we can talk about. And again, that individual, they may become overwhelmed, or they may actually not provide you an answer because they fear they may give you the wrong one. So if you do come across a situation where you do have to ask them an open-ended question, it also doesn't hurt to provide them a couple of decisions as well. And then finally, a couple of other things as well is that if you may find the individual did not understand the first time, there's nothing wrong with repeating the same question once again. We do want to make sure that if you are repeating the same question, you are using the same words again, because some individuals, if you ask them a similar sounding question that should provide you the same information, the individual who's living with dementia, they may think that's a completely new question. So again, if you have to repeat yourself, just make sure that you're using the same words. Then finally, once again, you may need to say, you know what, do I need to go to a quiet space? Or you know what, do you maybe want to take a walk with me through the library we can find, because sometimes the physical activity, that little bit of blood flow, can actually help them figure out what they were there to ask you. So now we're going to talk a little bit about that safety. So when we were talking about the signs and symptoms of individuals who are living with dementia, the one thing we talked about is that individuals can be at risk for wandering or getting lost. So what we do as the Alzheimer Society of Durham Region, we actually pair with emergency response teams. So that'd be the Durham Regional Police, firefighters, paramedics. And what they do is that we actually provide them training on how to handle a situation with an individual who's living with dementia, who is lost. So one of the services we offer is what we call Finding Your Way. And again, it just kind of helps teach individuals what it means if an individual is wandering, or what it means to be at risk for getting lost. What are the things to do if, if you have a loved one or a friend, or you get a call that someone is lost. But also use an individual how to approach a situation if you find someone out in the community who does appear lost. So do have a couple of tips on here as well. So we have, again, our medical alert, our safety home, also our vulnerable person registry. We provide services on how to get those set up. We encourage individuals that they carry identification, concerning a location device, as well as involving neighbors, families, and friends. Again, for some situations where maybe you're not living in the same area as the individual living with dementia, try and make sure you're involving these other people as well. Sorry, I just want to make sure I don't forget anything. So we're going to move on to another video just to kind of talk about when an individual does go missing, who is living with dementia. So one of the things we talk about, some individuals, they may think, oh, they'll find their way home, or let's give it a couple of minutes, maybe, it's not a big emergency. What we want to tell people is that the moment you hear that someone has gone missing or they've gone out for a walk, we want to make sure that we're calling those emergency services. We're calling someone to help us and go look for them, because unfortunately for that individual, if they're not interpreting their environment properly, they can be putting themselves in a dangerous situation. So I'm going to share. There we go.
So we received a phone call this morning at 2 o'clock from the RCMP with the report of a missing 89-year-old woman with advanced stages of dementia. She's a resident of the house that she was in for one day, and she walked away about midnight from this house. So when we were called out, she'd already been missing for about 3 hours. We responded with about 12 members and immediately started an urban search. Very thick fog, -5 degrees. So with the temperature being of concern, we were actually worried about hypothermia. Our subject had wandered away with minimal clothing, no shoes. We were actually quite concerned for her and her care. So we built the subject profile for her because she had been missing for so long. So our primary area was within a half-kilometer range of the point last seen. We searched everywhere that we possibly could, checked all vehicles, under hedges, anywhere that she could possibly have accessed. And at approximately 7 o'clock this morning, she was located in a car's dealership lot within that half-kilometer range. This was a very successful search. The outcome was great, especially with conditions that she did disappear in. We're very happy to hear that the subject will be okay, and the family is, I'm sure, they're relieved as well.
So again, just a quick little video to kind of show that the importance of making sure that if we do find out that someone has gone missing or they're wandering, we are alerting the proper authorities right away, because again, in the situation, they were fortunate. They did find the individual. It doesn't sound like they suffered any any injuries or to their person, but again, not all situations do have a happy ending like this. And as I said, when they were searching, they were searching for under bushes, under hedges, under anything. And as we said, individuals can kind of interpret their environment differently, and they can unfortunately get stuck in some certain spots. So again, if you know an individual is at risk for wandering or going missing, making sure that you are putting the proper supports in place so that if the situation does happen, we know how to handle it properly. So that's what we're going to talk about just our last couple of slides as well. It's just that if you do encounter an individual who has gone missing, just some things you can do. So first and foremost, is just being able to recognize that someone may be lost or confused about their whereabouts. So as we said, they're not appropriately addressed for the weather. So when we were talking about our signs and symptoms, the 10 warning signs about dementia, we saw the individual, they were outside in the snow and they had no coat, no boots, no mitts. So again, are they appropriately dressed for the weather? Are they looking up at street signs? So being able to tell the difference of someone looking at a street sign, knowing where they are, and then making a decision, I have to go left, right, forwards, backwards. An individual is kind of staring at a street sign for a while. They're not making a decision on where to go. That can be a sign that they may be a little confused. And that kind of leads to our next one, is that they're standing still and they're looking around for a long time. And again, we want to make sure that we're able to discern between someone who's standing around and maybe just enjoying the environment and someone who may be looking around. And that's where we can kind of look at those nonverbal cues, such as looking confused or disoriented. Maybe they're turning around, they're saying, oh, do I go this way or this way? I'm looking at a map or I'm looking up. And then finally, if you do interact or you may hear them, they're repeating the same question over and over again, a short period of time, like which way do I go? Do I go left or do I go right? Where did I just come from? So again, those are some great cues to kind of figure out, is this individual lost? And I do want to point out that the individual may not be living with dementia, and that's the reason why they may lost. They can be living with another mild cognitive impairment as well, but it still doesn't hurt to go and ask them and help out. And that's where we kind of jump to our next slide of just how to help the individual. So we say, first and foremost, we want to approach from the front and we want to identify who we are. Individuals, they can have issues with their peripheral vision. So if you approach from behind or from the side, they may not know, and that can actually instill a sense of fear in them. So make sure you approach from the front. For example, for me, I would go and say, hi, my name is Sarah. Do you need some help? Very quick question, yes or no. And again, using those communication methods, making sure we're speaking slowly and calmly to the individual, using close-ended questions such as, yes or no, not asking open-ended questions, not raising our voice. Again, maybe the situation can be frustrating, the individual may appear resistive, but again, trying to maintain calm and not raise our voice. Then again, giving them enough time to understand the question that's been asked and allowing them enough time to give a response. And as we said, if we have to repeat the question, making sure we're using the same words, the same phrasing as we did beforehand, so they're not thinking the same question is actually two different ones. And then we kind of talk about, again, using the appropriate services. So once again, we say stay calm, maintain, again, that good eye contact, avoid confrontation or avoid correcting the individual. Because again, sometimes correcting the individual, it may have an adverse effect. They may, want to no longer talk with you because in their mind, they're doing the right thing. And then finally, again, we want to encourage you, look for a medical alert bracelet or look for any kind of bracelet that may help identify them. And as we say, as soon as you can, call the police, call 911, make sure that you do have the proper authorities or you do have additional help kind of come in and help make sure the individual can be returned home safely. And last but not least, we don't want to leave that individual. We don't want to neglect them or anything. And sometimes that means, just going for a walk with them, or you can ask follow-up questions such as, you can ask, can I go for a walk with you? Or do you want to go sit down by this bench here? Just try and keeping them in the same spot. And now, again, just a little bit of background information on how the Alzheimer Society can help. Again, we provide services for anybody. If you're living with dementia, if you're a family member, a friend, a neighbor, if you want to volunteer, if you don't have anybody in your life right now who's living with dementia, but you're just curious about it, we offer information, education groups on everything. So we do provide a lot of support services. If you don't prefer groups, we also do a lot of one-on-one sessions and counseling. Again, maybe if you are feeling mentally, emotionally, or physically drained, if you're brand new to living with dementia, or you have an individual who has a brand new diagnosis and you don't kind of know where to turn to or what services you may need, we can help out with that as well. Education and training, we also do this a lot more for individuals such as healthcare practitioners. So it's ways, again, to how to communicate with individuals, how to address issues such as you may have someone who is lost or wandering. Again, Dementia Friendly Communities is one of the workshops and trainings we also do. And then first training for care partners is also understanding different ways an individual living with dementia may communicate and how to implement supportive strategies that meets their needs, but also reduces the amount of time you're trying to figure out what they're trying to communicate with you. And then we do also have active living as well for those who are living with dementia. So a young onset adult day program, they meet every Friday. Right now, it's a great group of guys. Every Friday, they meet for about 2 hours. They do games to kind of stimulate their cognition, their minds. They tell jokes, we play music, we do music therapy. It's kind of just a nice way to kind of have a nice support group for them. And again, kind of get the blood flowing. And as well, we do that in our minds in motion as well, where for a half hour, we do chair exercises. Again, get some physical activity as well. And then we do a little bit of a workshop afterwards on a specific topic. And then some other programs and events we have as well. So we do offer services in French as well. We have a great French First Link team that can help out individuals as well as a respite program, our Mint Memory clinics that help with, again, diagnosis and finding individual or specific services. And then coming up in May 2022, we have our Walk for Alzheimer's. And again, just saying that, just learning a little bit, having a little bit of awareness, helping that individual just, for 1 to 2 minutes that takes out of your day, it can mean the whole world for them. And again, we just do encourage individuals as well as that in order to help provide these services. We also do love, if you're able to make a donation, we do really appreciate it. And even instead of a donation, if you'd also like to become one of our volunteers and donate your time helping out as well. We do rely a lot on our volunteers, and whether that's them joining us for a session or a workshop and just helping take down attendance to helping kind of support our events as well. We love our volunteers. We love the services they provide for us. So if you are interested, you are able to visit our website or contact us at the number down below. And that is kind of it for a dementia friendly community. As I said, if you are interested in the trainings we offer, if you're interested in anything I've talked about today or wish to have any other additional information, you can contact myself at any time. My email is up there, as well as at alzheimersdurham.com. I've also put our education email there as well. So that way, if you do have a broader question, you can send it there as well, and we'll still reach out to you. And if not, as I said, we still strongly encourage you to visit our website, give us a call. Again, any questions, concerns, issues you have, we're here for you. So I'm going to stop sharing, and I think that's it.
Thank you, Sarah, so much for sharing such valuable information with us. I'm just going to stop the recording now and we can have our Q&A session.